Story 1. I have long eyelashes for a guy. An older Asian woman on the bus was looking at me strangely and staring for a while I was minding my own business. Before getting off at her stop, she tapped my arm, looked up at me and said, "Boy, you have the nicest eyelashes." I was smitten. She was the cutest little old Asian grandma, so I'll take what I can get. Story 2. A little girl told me that I look like Jasmine from Aladdin. It has been about 5 years, and I still feel complimented by it. I don't actually look like Jasmine, though. Story 3. Working as a bartender at the time, a guy told me, "You are so beautiful. I would love to drink your bathwater." I cut him off after that. Story 4. Thanks for being one of the few people who didn't treat me like I was different. Story 5. I met a new person and we introduced ourselves, chatting for about 30 seconds. He was leaving in a hurry, so he shouted to someone I had met about a month ago, a colleague. He said, "From today, he is my friend," referring to me. The colleague responded, "Probably the best friend you will ever meet." I believe that's a meaningful compliment. I wonder if it falls into the category of random. Best regards. Story 6. While standing in line, the woman in front of me turned and said, "There is a real sense of peaceful calm about you. I feel that it surrounds you wherever you go." My response was, "Namaste." Story 7. When I worked at Disneyland, a random guest told me, "Your complexion is fantastic. Can I tattoo you?" I was so shocked that I honestly couldn't respond. I just laughed and ushered them onto the ride. Story 8. I was doing bicep curls and my veins were popping. A guy next to me said, "Damn, bro, you look like a black Dragon Ball Z character." Story 9. When I was younger, a woman noticed that I was shy and kept my eyes down. She told me to never hide my blue eyes. I looked at her and saw she was wearing sunglasses, which obscured her eyes. I was very young and did not realize that she was a battered woman in need of help until after that moment passed. Story 10. When I was applying for my first job, I walked into a store and asked for an application. An older lady customer said, "He's cute. You should hire him." I never saw that lady again in the 5 months I worked there, but I internally thank her because, first, she complimented me, and second, she helped me get a job. Story 11. I was holding a baby when a woman walked by and said, "Hey, you look really cool holding that baby. Holding babies makes you look cool." Story 12. Years ago, while gardening in shorts and a sports bra, a woman around 40 years old, was visited by a gay couple who told me they both agreed I had the perfect body. So when two gay men tell a flat-chested woman that her body is perfect, it makes you wonder if it's a compliment or an insult. Story 13. I was riding my bike and stopped at an intersection to let a well-dressed elderly man cross the street. As he passed, he turned to me, tipped his hat, and said in a gentle southern drawl, "Excuse me, ma'am, but you have some real nice features." Then he turned back and continued shuffling across the street. Story 14. A couple of weeks ago at the gym, one of the regular girls I had never spoken to before walked up to me, gestured for me to take out my headphones, and said, "Just so you know, you have really nice arms." Then she just walked away. I was in genuine shock because that had never happened to me before. Story 15. I'm a former emergency medical technician, and your veins are absolutely beautiful in color and look easy to access. I'd love to assist you sometime. All I did was ask how he wanted his refund. Story 16. The massage therapist was rubbing my feet. "You sure have soft feet. Do you get pedicures?" she asked. I'm a guy, and yes, I occasionally get pedicures. Story 17. Wow, you make really nice ampersands. My handwriting is awful for the most part. But 20 years ago, when I was taking a few symbolic logic courses, I practiced my ampersands, so the result was quite satisfying. Story 18. I was standing outside my Seattle Metal bar, wearing my battle jacket and a Borderlands hat, when a random passerby stopped, looked me up and down, and handed me a nice MF Doom ring. "You look cool enough to wear this. I think you should have it." I had never felt cooler. Story 19. I happen to be, through no specific effort or achievement of my own, a strong individual. I had a job at a holistic animal medicine factory, which was a small operation where we all wore multiple hats. I typically mixed the ingredients at specific ratios and bottled them. However, on some days I would run out of work and help out elsewhere. On one such day, I was assisting some colleagues in the warehouse with loading and unloading boxes. A potential investor or customer was walking around with the boss, and they ended up by themselves, wandering into the warehouse. I guess I was lifting heavy items quite easily, and they exclaimed, "What do you feed this guy?" My coworker Jim was next to me, and without missing a beat, he placed his hand on my shoulder and loudly replied, "Gunpowder and lead." I thought that was pretty cool. Story 20. A woman at work saw photos of me from my brother's wedding. At my workplace, we have to wear protective gear and hairnets, and I usually just wear sweatpants and old clothes. My coworker very bluntly said, "I love how you look, but not in here." Story 21. One girl told me my voice was heavenly. Another girl mentioned I have pretty fingers, but I'm a guy. Story 22. You should take your cholesterol results and frame them because they are the best levels I have ever seen. Story 23. Many years ago, I was in a queue at Argos. When I reached the counter to place my order, the staff member seemed flustered and said, "I'm so sorry. I've forgotten how to use the register. You look like a movie star." I absolutely do not look like a movie star, but it was a great confidence boost. Story 24. You can't be from Long Island. I like you. You're not an unpleasant person, and people from Long Island are often perceived negatively. Story 25. I remember two unusual and somewhat random compliments. They were both recent. I was getting a second piercing in my earlobes, and the tattoo artist, as she readied the needle, said, "Oh, you have nice juicy earlobes." The second compliment came from an X-ray technician who was evaluating the success of a recent knee X-ray she had just completed. The knee had a 6-inch plate of titanium and 6 screws from a surgery in 1994. The technician said, from the X-ray viewing area where I couldn't see her, "Whoa, nice hardware you have there." Story 26. As a mixed-race man of Mexican and Japanese descent, I was told I was beautiful by a stunning young African-American woman in Locke, California, a small town just outside Sacramento. I think about her from time to time, even though I never caught her name or number. Story 27. An old lady at funerals told me, "You're so pretty I'd like to rip off your head and put it on my desk to see you every day." Story 28. An older woman complimented the gray portions of my hair and expressed her jealousy that hers was not doing the same yet. Story 29. You're just like Matilda. I was a little kid who loved to devour books. One of my classmates noticed, and even decades later, it feels like one of the most meaningful compliments I have ever received. Story 30. I look nothing like Denzel Washington, but I took it as a compliment because that man is great at what he does. Story 31. I was at a children's play area with my nieces one day. I was in casual clothing without makeup. A precious little girl came over to me and said, "My daddy tells me I'm beautiful, and it makes me so happy that you are beautiful like my daddy tells me I am." Story 32. I had long, naturally light blonde hair at the time. I was outside walking through a shopping center one afternoon when a man, who I would guess was in his 60s or 70s, looked at me and said, "Your hair looks just like the corn silk back on the farm." That was 1998, and it still brings a smile. Story 33. This might not seem random, but I feel like it is. I have been told this twice in the same setting, which makes it a compliment but random to me. Just because you can be helpful doesn't mean you should be. I was under anesthesia for surgery, woke up, and attempted to assist the doctors by telling them what to do. I vividly remember both times, and as soon as I was lucid and awake when I was supposed to be, I thoroughly apologized, and both were shocked I remembered. One was for my right-hand carpal tunnel surgery, and the other was for multiple molar extractions. I am neither trained in carpal tunnel surgery nor tooth extraction. Story 34. I am a 52-year-old firefighter and paramedic, and I consider myself very average, average height, average weight, and average looking at best. I walked into a house for a woman having a medical emergency. She was about 15 years my senior. When she saw me, She gasped, and I thought her problem had worsened. She then said in a loud voice, "Oh my God, you're a handsome man." It was very unexpected, but it did put a smile on my face. Story 35. At yoga one day, the woman next to me, whom I didn't know and hadn't spoken to, said, "It was a pleasure practicing next to you." I replied thank you and quickly left because I'm an introvert. Story 36. I was catching a connecting flight at Los Angeles International Airport once, and a girl with a foreign accent approached me and asked if I was a movie star. She said I was pretty like a movie star, and I have been holding on to that for 13 years. Story 37. When I was in college, we used to sit in our driveway and enjoy some beers on the weekends. One time, while walking back inside to refill the cooler, a homeless man passing by told me, "Hey man, you live every day like it's a holiday." Story 38. While working at a grocery store in high school, I bagged groceries logically. Avoiding putting cans in a bag with chips, a customer remarked, "You're too methodical. You don't belong here." Story 39. Walking out of the gym after showering, a man approached me and said, "I didn't mean to stare, and this is awkward, but you have the largest balls I have ever seen." I was in shock at first, but then replied, "Thanks, I grew them myself." Story 40. Had a date scheduled, but the guy backed out because my eyes said everything and it made him uncomfortable. I was only 17. Story 41. When I was in college, I had an abortion, and during the process, they performed an ultrasound. The technician said I had a perfect uterus. I am not sure if she said it to make me feel better or to highlight how different uteruses can be, but it did make me feel better. Story 42. This is Ms. Megan. She is the fun teacher. I am a speech-language pathologist, but I will gladly take the title of fun teacher any day. Story 43. I have never questioned a single decision you have ever made, said my brother-in-law. A male friend told me, "You are my only safe friend to whom I can tell absolutely anything." Story 44. Not wildly random, but just the other day, someone here told me I seemed kind. I've been a nice, people-pleasing, anxiously attached, overthinking person afraid of rejection and abandonment. The joy I felt from them choosing that particular word instead of nice was validating. It helped me realize that all the work I'm doing on myself is showing up in the world. Story 45. There are 2 compliments I received. The first was from someone who told me that my presence felt like a breezy, sunny day from their childhood when they were visiting their grandmother. It was warm, bright, happy, and made them feel at peace. The second compliment came from a homeless woman. She walked up, stared into my eyes for a moment, and then said that I had a beautiful soul. Story 46. I was in a Walmart in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, waiting for my sister to return. An elderly black man walked by and said, "Wow, girl, you're about to fall down." You know what I mean? Fall down. I have no idea what he meant, but honestly, it's still the best compliment I've ever received. Story 47. Not sure I would call it random in the sense of being weird or quirky, but next month I will be 30 years old, and today was the first time I ever heard someone say they were proud of me. It hit me hard. I have been feeling emotional all day. I am about to get out of my car and walk through the front door after getting home from work to see my family, and I have no idea how to conduct myself. I feel giddy, yet at the same time I want to cry. I don't know. It's a big mixture of emotions right now. Story 48. I had a dentist compliment my teeth, specifically their spacing, as it allowed for more efficient brushing and flossing. He went into a discussion about genetics and eugenics while doing my exam. Years later, he murdered his wife. Story 49. A man who learned that I had served in the military thanked me for my service. We rarely hear that in Canada. Story 50. I have cat-like eyes, which is strange because my favorite animal is a cat. Story 51. Can I buy your hair for highlights for some wigs? When I was 16 in a mall, someone asked me that. I have a really unique hair color. I said no, but that comment inspired me to donate my hair twice. So kudos to that kind woman. Story 52. A classmate once said she loves my voice because I sound like a Disney narrator. This was after reading something aloud in class. Story 53. I appreciate your ability to notice ordinary things that people often overlook. I admire how you find joy in the little things. Thank you for being here. Story 54. The faculty I was studying at had an electroencephalography lab, and I went there as a test subject for a language processing study. After the test, the person running the study told me I should visit the lab more often because I had nice brainwaves. I don't know what that means exactly in relation to my brain, but I am glad the readings they got from me looked positive. Story 55. A man approached me in a thrift store and said, "You look eccentric, and I'm here for it. I love an individual." It was the best compliment ever. Story 56. What do you do for a living? You look expensive, said in a sassy tone by a fabulous man outside a bar at 3 a.m. It has been 3 years, and I still smile when I think about it. Story 57. You're so nice. If you were in solitary confinement, they'd let you out to work in the kitchen. This occurred immediately after I denied a homeless man a kiss on the mouth. Story 58. When people see your work ethic, they realize how hard they are not working. Felt really good to hear that. Story 59. At a low point in my life, I attended an overnight work retreat at a campsite. There were many people there I didn't know, but I connected with one guy, and we made each other laugh. At one moment, almost to the point of tears, he randomly said, "I feel better knowing that people like you exist in the world." I was taken aback and didn't know how to respond. Holding back tears, I put my arm around his shoulder and said, "Thank you. I'm glad to know you too." Story 60. Someone at the club said that they were not hitting on me, but I looked very smart, and they liked the way I carried myself. Story 61. A girl almost fainted because of how good-looking I am. I lived in Okinawa, Japan about 10 years ago. I am a white male and would consider myself good-looking, not movie star or model good-looking, but athletic-looking and decent otherwise. My wife and I were touring a castle on the island when we passed a group of young Japanese girls, somewhere between ages 12 and 18. Out of nowhere, one of them became somewhat hysterical while looking in our direction. She stopped dead in her tracks and started saying kawaii over and over again, which means cute in Japanese, while waving her hand over her face and falling into her friend's arms. One thing I learned in Japan is that the words for cute and ugly sound very similar to an English speaker. I cannot say for certain which she said, but I prefer to believe it was the former, not the latter. I also cannot say with certainty that she wasn't looking at someone behind me, but again, I choose to believe she was looking at me. So that's the story about how I made someone nearly faint because of my good looks. It was quite the compliment. Story 62. A male coworker commented on my basketball shorts, mentioning the size and mass of my body. Story 63. I have very fleshy feet. A doctor I consulted about my leg problems said. The tone of her voice made it sound quite strange. I wouldn't exactly consider it a compliment, though. Story 64. About 15 years ago, while walking through downtown on my lunch break, a young woman told me I had very pretty eyes. I had never received a compliment on my eyes before, and I still think about that moment. Story 65. I was at a large event for work, but I was off at the time. I had worked all morning and was in a uniform. I would consider myself plain-looking, especially since this event included cosplayers. The whole event was full of beautiful people dressed up with gorgeous makeup, flaunting their bodies. I was at a random booth, asking the owner a question, when a man near me looked up and said, "Wow, you are really pretty." I just smiled and thanked him, and he walked away. That was it. It was the most genuine compliment I have ever received, and I will never forget it. Story 66. I was at a show once and I got separated from my girlfriend at the time. As I was walking around looking for her, a random girl my age said something to me. I didn't hear and asked her to repeat herself. She told me, "I said you're very attractive." I thanked her and continued walking until I found my girlfriend. Story 67. You have very good blood iron levels. I have never seen someone with blood that sinks that fast, especially during pregnancy. A random lady at the Women, Infants, and Children office took a drop of blood and put it in a vial, and the speed at which it dropped to the bottom of the liquid determined if I needed to check my iron levels. Story 68, you have birthing hips. I was really skinny, so I thought, okay, maybe I have a figure now. Story 69, I have been complimented multiple times about my hands by random women and a few girlfriends. I have very normal hands, and I don't know what that means. Story 70, I didn't receive this, but a friend of mine did. He was at the dentist for a checkup. The doctor named each tooth to his nurse, who was taking notes, going through every tooth until he stopped at one. My friend started thinking, oh no, what did he find? Time to drill. The dentist was quiet for a while and then said, what a beautifully repaired tooth you have there, before continuing. Story 71. I once had a friend tell me I was emotionally mature while we were high together. I wasn't exactly sure how to take that, but it felt nice. I still don't know how to process it. I've always felt the opposite was true. However, since the compliment, I've been noticing certain areas where I am doing well in that regard. I remember July 13th of last year because of a major unrelated event that happened that same day. Interestingly, that was just a couple of months before the depression I have suffered from my entire life went away. I'm not sure if the two are related. Rest in peace, Stephen. Story 72. Once, a friend of mine told me, I am not letting you go. You are too good to lose. I was speechless. I couldn't believe someone said that to me. We are best friends now, and I hope it stays that way, forever. Story 73. This just happened last week. I was walking on a fairly busy street when a girl handed me a small flower and said I was handsome. It took me about 2 to 3 seconds to process what had happened. Story 74. I was wearing a black suit with a purple shirt. You look like Wilson Fisk. You definitely seem like you've strangled someone with your bare hands. Story 75. As someone with curly hair, any compliment I receive that does not pertain to my hair is special to me. Story 76. An older lady visited my workplace once. I met her and spoke briefly, not thinking much about it. She visited again a couple of months later, and when we spoke, she asked, forgive me, but what is your name? I told her, and she replied, oh yes, I can't believe I forgot. I haven't forgotten your face. You're so pretty and have such a beautiful smile. She seemed very matter-of-fact about it. Caught me off guard but made me feel really good about myself. She was not the overly chatty or friendly type, so I took her words to heart. I have been complimented before, but that one stuck with me. Story 77. An attractive lady told me she liked my sweater. I did not say much, just thank you. It is one of my favorite sweaters. Story 78. A friend of mine's child told me he was impressed that I didn't need braces as a child. Wow, you have those teeth without braces? Nice. Story 79. People often compliment my vocabulary usage. I read extensively and enjoy using obscure words and phrases. Story 80. Your long eyelashes keep getting in the way, said my ophthalmologist. Great mustache, dude. A random guy said to me at the end of a long hike. I was a mess, but that compliment made my day. Story 81. I was walking in Boys Town in Chicago one time. I'm straight. And this little otter walked by, pointed at me and loudly said, yes, before chasing away. I have been riding off that affirmation for almost 20 years. Story 82. Whenever I need to get blood drawn, the phlebotomist always compliments how thick and easy to access my veins are. Story 83. Your cervix is perfect, according to my gynecologist. It's much better, but less funny, than my friend who was told her uterus is unfriendly. Story 84. Not me, my son. I was going through a checkout with him when he was a baby, and the woman serving us said, your baby is so beautiful. You must have a very good-looking husband. So yeah, definitely no compliment to me. Story 85. Not me, but a good friend. She was having lunch with her mother when a guy sent them a bottle of champagne because she has great teeth. She truly has perfect teeth. Story 86. A guy I had a brief connection with said I was like gum that never loses its flavor. I liked that a lot. He also mentioned that I had nice nail beds. Story 87. I was trying to convince the homeless man who was shouting in front of my store to move to the sidewalk and continue yelling. After 10 minutes, I got him to agree. As he was leaving, he told me, "You have a nice figure." I am a man and still unsure how to respond. Story 88. A man approached me at a music festival and said, "Small in the waist, pretty in the face," before walking away. I don't know why, but it really upset me. He's lucky he walked away, or I would have confronted him. Story 89. People often compliment my skin, and it feels a bit uncomfortable at times. I'm not referring to general compliments like, "You look great for your age. You take care of yourself." Instead, it's more about men approaching me randomly and saying things like, "I like your skin. It looks so soft." Story 90. You're my favorite podcast. I loved hearing it at the time, but in hindsight, maybe she was indicating that I talk too much. Story 91. You have hair. I usually wear a hat because my hair never stays in place. A colleague at work assumed I was bald and hiding it. She then commented on how pretty the color was, but hearing that yelled down the hall while I was zoned out was strange. Story 92. A girl working at the popcorn counter in a movie theater told me I had beautiful green eyes in front of a crowd of customers. They all laughed while I ordered my popcorn in embarrassment. I was 15 years old and a little shy, so I didn't have the courage to talk to her later. Story 93. I had a coworker compliment me on my nice, straight teeth. She said they resemble what she envisions attractive men to have. While it was a compliment, it felt somewhat confusing and misleading since I am not Italian. Story 94. Just earlier today, someone complimented my signature. I wasn't even sure what she meant at first. Story 95. You seem to know what you are doing. It gives the impression that you have your life together. I laughed and apologized for giving them that impression since they had been seeking advice. Story 96. My high school friend. It feels wonderful to be your friend. I feel calm around you because you stroke my hair, hold my hands, and hug me. I do the same for my friends who enjoy physical affection. Story 97. At the start of high school, I was having lunch with a new classmate. I was drinking water when she suddenly said, "You drink beautifully. We are Finnish," and that's the most literal translation. I doubt I will hear that one again. Story 98. My friend's wife told me I have nice teeth the first night I met her. I have never forgotten it. Men do not often receive compliments, so we remember them. Story 99. I had a dental assistant examine my teeth while I was in the military, and she said I had the mouth of America. My mom was also a dental assistant and laughed when I told her. Story 100. I haven't received a response, but I said something to a girl. You know how some people have slightly crooked mouths? I told her that I think her crooked mouth is attractive, but she thought I was insulting her. In my defense, I didn't know what else to call it. Story 101. Look at the girl with the big legs. I heard this said in an Eastern European accent, so I took it as a compliment. Story 102. A woman approached me and asked if I wanted to have some fun. I politely declined, and she asked for a cigarette. She complimented me on my kind eyes. Story 103. I have a tooth that grew in the wrong direction, and my dentist says, "Ah, there's your cute little tooth," every time I get a cleaning. Story 104. You look like someone who would collect records. Your name sounds like a British aristocrat, which is my personal favorite. Story 105. I went to the doctor last month because I was worried about my spine. I have severe osteoporosis. He looked at the x-rays and said, "Apart from the osteoporosis, the scoliosis, and the osteoarthritis, your spine is looking okay." I didn't know I had osteoarthritis until that point. Story 106. I often hear that I have a nice smile and nice teeth. A male friend once told me, "I love that when you smile. I can practically see every tooth in your mouth." Story 107. I was leaving my college when a flock of school kids, probably 7 to 8 years old, saw me and together made a gesture with their fingers. I was confused but responded in kind. They all looked extremely happy. It was confusing, but I took it as a compliment, especially coming from kids. Story 108. It wasn't me. My friend, who has many freckles, was with me at the time, and it made her so happy. A face without freckles is like the night sky without stars. Story 109. You look just like Harrison Ford, said a little old lady in a parking lot after I jump-started her Corolla. I am a blonde-haired, blue-eyed, stocky man. I don't resemble Ford at all and never did. Story 110. What college classes are you taking? As an 18-year-old, I often get mistaken for a college student, even though I am a woman in my early 30s. It really made my day. Story 111. I was in a large department store coming up the escalator, just minding my own business, when a very tall man caught my eye as he walked by. When I say tall, I mean he was significantly bigger than me. I'm about 6 feet 1 inch, and this guy had at least 5 to 6 inches on me. He stopped mid-stride as I reached him and said, sucking air through his teeth, "You are beautiful." I nervously laughed and said thank you. I thought he wanted to fight me. Thank goodness he didn't want to fight me. Story 112. When I was a receptionist many years ago, I was told I had a very calming voice. It was nice to hear. Story 113. I was dating a woman 20 years older than me. One day, out of nowhere, she told me, "I think I am starting to like you." The way she said it, with a sincere voice and looking into my eyes, made me so happy. I reminded her that we cannot marry and that this situation would eventually end. I should have skipped that part. Women praising men is underrated. Ladies, do more of it. Story 114. I was at the doctor's office, and the nurse told me my cologne was nice while she was administering an electrocardiogram. Story 115. You have the largest and most beautiful placenta I have ever seen, said the doctor who delivered my first baby. Thank you? Story 116. Years ago, as a tall, skinny, white, 24-year-old male bartender, I was told by 2 of my black female coworkers that I had a physique any black woman would be proud of. Several other coworkers vocally agreed with this sentiment. I understood that it was intended as a compliment, but I'm still baffled by it nearly 15 years later. Story 117. I really like the way you use your hands. I was at a card shop playing Yu-Gi-Oh! And shuffling my hand of cards. Story 118. Walking down Royal one morning in New Orleans, I passed by a young man who looked like he should be wearing a "No, I won't fix your computer" t-shirt, which he was. He waited until we crossed and muttered, "You're gorgeous." Story 119. You have nice nails. I am a 38-year-old straight man who just trims them when necessary. The compliment came from an older man as well. Story 120. I worked at a retail job that had a bulletin board in the break room where everyone left notes for each other. Shift swap requests, jokes, and more. Someone left an anonymous note for me right after I started. My name looks like a cross between Beck and Dido Hot. It was about 20 years ago, and it still makes me laugh when I think about it. Story 121. Not really a compliment, but when my dentist performed a root canal on my back molar, he said, "Wow, that is literally the biggest pulp chamber I have ever seen." He is about 75 years old, so that is quite impressive, I must say. Story 122. You feel safe. It made me feel good, but it was a bit strange that my ears seemed to love being whispered to. I was like, thanks, I think. Story 123. A very intoxicated older man in a gas station told me that I am a beautiful woman and should feel proud of my heritage for giving me gorgeous dark hair and eyes. I am not Italian. I accepted the compliment and went along with it. He was smiling at me and seemed like a genuine person, although he was drunk. Story 124. You have a nice arch, said a girl at a party who was apparently a dental technician. As someone who is on the autism spectrum, I still have no idea if she was being sarcastic or not. Story 125. I have the whitest vocal cords my ear, nose, and throat specialist has ever seen in her career. She even asked to take a picture of them. She said they were beautiful. Story 126. You always made my day. I'm grateful to have you as my classmate. Story 127. I've been called handsome a few times. I was once called buff by a professional woman reviewing my resume. The second compliment caught me off guard. My list of known compliments is short. Story 128. More than 2 decades ago, a man at a bar grabbed his friend and said, "Hey, doesn't she look like the cartoon version of April from the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles?" He meant it as a compliment. That was pretty random, but I guess flattering. Story 129. Someone once said they liked the way the air smelled after I walked through it, which is an incredibly strange way of saying I smell good. Story 130. You look like a beautiful animated character, said a friend with no filter after I cut my hair short. Karl Marx would kiss you on the forehead, commented another friend. Story 131. I received praise for my teeth at the dentist, but all they have done for me so far is hinder my ability to play the trumpet in high school. I wore braces for about 5 years. Story 132. A random lady told 12-year-old me that my pants were amazing, and I was excited about it. I still believe my fashion sense is great, even though my ex repeatedly said otherwise while we were still together. Story 133. The medical field needs more people like you. Older women, doctors, and midwives always urge me to pursue nursing because of my calm and sweet temperament. This happens at least 3 times a month. Story 134. In high school, a girl walked by me and said she liked my hair a lot. It was past my shoulder and average in maintenance. But hey, that was nice. Story 135. Your veins are perfect, said my phlebotomist. It was unusual, but I will never forget it. I love it. Story 136. Beautiful baby, just like her mother. A few minutes after my daughter was born, I felt immense happiness. I will never forget that moment. She was right. My daughter is absolutely beautiful. Story 137. A girl on the soccer team in high school complimented my calves. I was caught off guard, but it made me happy. Story 138. A former boss called me a rock when I left the company for a new opportunity. To be honest, it felt great. I never had to worry about you. You were a rock. Funny, dependable, talented, and principled. Story 139. Gate agent at Akron Airport on July 28, 2008, said, "I really like your shirt. Still makes me smile." Story 140. I once had a woman tell me that I was beautiful. We had just met and I was about 20 years old. Now I am just an older man. I never thought about my looks, and I was startled beyond belief. Story 141. A girl in high school told me I had the sexiest nose in our year, and her friend agreed. I was so shy but delighted because she was so cool. Looking back, it was such a nice thing for her to do. Come to think of it, she once asked me to carry her books to her next class. I panicked and said I was late, then hurried away from her. It never occurred to me that someone might like me. Story 142. Driving through a turnpike toll booth years ago, the attendant at the window told me I had a lovely smile. I have never forgotten it. I was having a rough day, and it made me feel good. Story 143. A lady at the International Food Tasting Festival in town told me I had a really nice chin. It wasn't an old lady. She was an attractive woman my age. I looked over at her husband, made eye contact, and we both burst out laughing. I said, "Thank you," like Garth. I could tell it was one of those genuinely weird compliments someone blurts out without thinking, so it must be true. I had received comments about my chin before, but not in a long time. Story 144. 2 memories have always stuck with me. 1. The girl at the bank told me my hair color paired nicely with my skin tone. Someone having a bad trip on mushrooms at a concert kept talking to me. They said I had a great aura and that they felt better. Story 145. I stopped for gas on my motorcycle. An older gentleman smiled at me and said, "You remind me of my late wife. She was sturdy as well." Story 146. I like your eyebrows. They are very stern and full of emotion. Do people often misjudge you because of your eyebrows? This was a comment from a previous bank client. I believe I have very average, lightly plucked, natural eyebrows. They were never on my radar before, but I have been paranoid ever since. Story 147. When I was younger, a lady approached me in a grocery store and said I looked like a young Audrey Hepburn. Story 148. For my work, I wear a dark blue uniform, not police, but ticket checker on trains. As I was getting my daily dose of nicotine in front of the station, a random 40-year-old man approached me and told me that he isn't gay, but that I look really attractive in that uniform. Story 149. I was told by a creepy guy at the gas station that I was a goddess and should be bowed down to. It's nice to have someone think I'm pretty, but of course it comes from a creeper at the gas station. Thanks for the boost in self-esteem. Story 150. I was getting my ears pierced, and the woman who was doing it told me that she liked the shape of my ears, or something along those lines. It was years ago. Story 151. I am 37 million Hispanic. I am heavily tattooed, have stretched ears, and weigh 235 pounds at 5 feet 8 inches tall. A few times, random women have told me I am beautiful, which always catches me off guard because I don't see it. Story 152. I work at a plasma donation center, and this guy would always come in very much on some kind of drugs. He was always energetic, nice, singing, and dancing. He loved us all and was honestly a treat to be around. One time he told me, "You are so fine, if you die, I'd have to jump in the casket with you. No way the Lord is taking something so good." Story 153. You are a good woman. This was said by an old lady when I ran to return her scarf that she had dropped in the middle of the pedestrian crossing. Story 154. I had two different guys at the gym approach me on different days. An older gentleman complimented my eyes, while a younger man remarked that he liked my short hair. It was a positive experience to receive compliments without any expectations. This was different from another guy who kept insisting that I follow him on Instagram and asked for my number. Story 155. Being called brilliant when introduced to someone at a large party by an old friend who had been drinking and is a smooth talker. Story 156. When I was in my 20s, a woman walked by me and said, "You are an unusually pretty girl. What made this remarkable is that I am not." Story 157. An elderly man shook my hand and said, "You know what they say about cold hands? Warm heart." He then smiled and walked away. Story 158. Going into a club, a guy told me I look like a young female version of Christopher Walken. I took it as a compliment. Story 159. I have really nice features. The girl meant I have slim legs and arms. I thought she was referring to something else, to be honest. Story 160. I held the door for a lady and her kids at McDonald's, and she said, "Thank you. I like your shorts." I was wearing just regular gym shorts. Story 161. As I was juggling my 3 young kids at an outing, an older woman asked me if I was excited to get a dress for prom. I'm in my 30s. My husband overheard while coming back from the public restroom and had a good laugh. Story 162. I am 6 feet 7 inches tall, and my wife's medical colleague said I have incredible tibias. I've also been called a highly intelligent golden retriever. For clarity, I am human. Story 163. I was standing in the checkout line at the grocery store when an older lady behind me unexpectedly said, "You look like you would be really nice to cats." I think it was a compliment. Story 164. I have had several people in my life ask my mom if they could adopt me or request a recipe for how she raised me. Many people have said that I will be someone significant in the future. On another note, I am not the type of person who seeks out hugs, but many people approach me. I have been told that I am someone perfect to lean on. Story 165. You wash your hands thoroughly. I worked at a small bank and handled cash all day, which made my hands dirty. Story 166. 3 to 4 guys have told me I have a nice jawline, but not a single woman has. I want women to compliment my jawline. However, I don't really have a chiseled jawline, so when they tell me that, I feel surprised. Story 167. Can I see your ID? Apparently, I look like I was born in the 2000s. I'm a 96 baby, and people genuinely think I'm joking about being almost 30. I've even had someone check my ID to make sure it's not fake. Story 168. You have a really infectious laugh. It was also said by someone who doesn't like me, so I knew they meant it. Story 169. I attended a course for 2 weeks and did not know anyone. One day, during a coffee break, I engaged in small talk with a man when he unexpectedly touched my belly and complimented me on my scent. He was straight, and no one knows I am gay unless I disclose it, so it felt strange and a bit awkward but still flattering. Interestingly, I only used inexpensive denim aftershave that day, and out of the 5 times someone mentioned I smelled good, 3 times it was attributed to the aftershave, and 2 times it was the old Bulgari. Story 170. A client I had only spoken to on the phone a few times said I had an NPR voice. I wasn't sure if it was meant to be a compliment, but since I am a loyal NPR listener, I took it as one. Story 171. 2 decades ago, I was walking through the city when a woman approximately my age, with a professional-style camera, asked if she could take a picture of me. I agreed, and she took the photo. I then asked why she wanted to capture my image, and she replied, "I just like taking pictures of beautiful things and people." Story 172. A coworker I had never spoken to before came up to me and told me I have a smile that lights up the room. To this day, it is definitely the nicest thing anyone has ever said to me. Story 173. I love the way you talk. It sounds like you're singing. This was a very nice compliment I received from a customer while working in a bookstore. I have never heard anything like it before or since. Story 174. Girls in junior high and high school would stop me in the hall, glare into my eyes, and tell me I have beautiful eyes. I still think about it from time to time. Story 175. A man once exclaimed, "Girl, you look like a fresh tattoo," when he saw me, and it was the nicest thing anyone had ever said about me. Story 176. You have a small face. People in Japan tell me this almost every time I visit, while some people have larger heads. Story 177. I had just boarded a plane when the middle-aged lady sitting next to me, whom I didn't know, whispered, "I bet every young man walking toward their seat is disappointed when they see it's not next to you." I was really shy at the time and had no idea what to say to her. Story 178. I was working as a hostess in a restaurant when an old man looked at me and said, "Where did they get you? Straight out of Playboy?" Story 179. I was once told I had a noble forehead. That is a nicer way of saying the truth. I have a large forehead, so I'll take it. Story 180. Snoring. I don't have a source, but some victims of rape or assault can only fall asleep if they feel safe. I learned this when a friend fell asleep in my truck while I was driving her home one day. I thought she was just staring out the window until I heard light snoring. I didn't pay much attention to it until she woke up, totally shocked that she had fallen asleep, and explained it to me. Story 181. Don't let your teeth get any whiter. I have never had my teeth whitened, and they are not bright white. I used to have yellow teeth from smoking, which have brightened to an ivory color. I have tried at-home bleaching kits, but the bleach causes tooth pain. Story 182. I often hear that my skin smells like cookies, cupcakes, candy, or other sweet desserts. Story 183. You are a good-looking guy. You should put your picture on your business card. My business coach said after I had newly migrated to North America. I was shocked to hear it. Story 184. When I donated blood, the lady said I had great veins and could stick the needle anywhere. Also, the blood came out very quickly. Story 185. Are you a performer? I was paying for my groceries using cash and small change. I took offense at first, but then I thought, woo-hoo, at 46 years old, it doesn't get any better. Story 186. Sometimes I have trouble distinguishing between phrases that are compliments, flirting, or harassment. It often depends on who is delivering them. Story 187. At school, a girl told me I had gorgeous eyebrows. A couple of years later, a woman at the pharmacy told me I had nice arms. I think about those compliments most weeks. Story 188. When I had my annual interview with my boss about my performance over the past year, he told me, "You are a reassuring person." I responded, "Really?" Story 189. You have a face that is really pleasing to children. This was decades ago when my retail job was trying to decide who would dress as an elf during the Christmas season, and my boss was trying to pitch the role to me. I told my friend, and that was her response. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.